Williams jet tenders are the go-to brand for small, sporty, inflatable tenders to store on board your motor yacht. And now they have just launched a brand new entry-level range that is lighter, cheaper, and even more fun than the previous generation. So let me introduce you to them very briefly. Now, they are called the MX range. They are deliberately lighter, a little bit simpler, a whole lot more fun. This is the MX280. It's powered by a 60 horsepower water jet. It effectively replaces what used to be the MiniJet. It's very similar in many ways, but again, it's just been a little bit simplified, and they've worked really hard to keep the prices down. So this retails at $17,295, and it weighs around 235 kilograms. But the real news is this boat, the new MX320. Now, as the name suggests, it is significantly longer. It means there's space for an extra passenger on board, and crucially, it gets the bigger 90 horsepower engine. But it still only weighs 250 kilograms. So it should be an absolute rocket ship. I'm told it does about 48 miles an hour, which frankly, in a boat of 3.2 meters long, is going to be very good fun indeed. So I can't wait to see how it performs. Now, this retails incredibly at under £20,000. It's just $19,995. And they've done that by really pushing hard on all their suppliers, keeping it a little bit simpler, keeping the weight down, not giving too many options, but still all those traditional Williams qualities like solid build, really cool styling, and very neat finishing. So we're going to take them out, give them both a sea trial, and see how they perform. Now, one of the unusual things about the way these waterjet drives is there is no actual neutral. When you have it in the neutral position on the throttle, all it is balancing the forward and aft propulsion by means of a bucket that comes down over it. So as soon as I fire it up, we're effectively underway, but hopefully we won't go anywhere. Press and hold the button, engine fires up, and you can see we're static. But as soon as I put it into gear, we're underway, and straight away you can see we can just spin on the spot like this. That's what I mean about responsive. But wait until you see just how quick it is. As soon as I put this throttle down, we're going to take off like a scalded cat. 3, 2, 1. That is absolutely bonkers. That is absolutely insane how quickly that accelerates. I didn't even have a chance to look at the speed. So this time I'm going to try and find a flat patch of water and see just how quick it is. Now, we're in kmh. I think you can change it to knots or miles per hour. I just haven't figured out how to do that yet. So let's see what we can do. Because that is properly quick. I saw 74 kilometers an hour on there before we started skipping out of the water, and of course when you skip out of the water it can't suck water in or spit it out, so it slows you down a little bit automatically when you start coming out. But this thing really flies. It's almost scarily quick, and that is why they do have a switch on this where you can actually put it down into learner mode and reduce the rev so it's not going quite as quickly as that. Because for a boat of this size, and let's not forget it's only 3.2 meters long, it is insanely quick. But the other thing about it is not just quick, it's also a huge amount of fun because of just how responsive the steering is. And actually it's pretty grippy. Those little fins do make a difference. It gives you the tracking. You probably saw me working the steering quite hard there at speed just because it's so light. You do just get bounced around a little bit by even the slightest chop. But let's find a little flat part of water and show you how quickly it can turn. So let's just get on the plane. Okay, so now we're doing 35 kilometers an hour. Still pretty quick in a small boat like this, but look how quickly it turns. Let's go to port. Whoa! In less than 2 boat lengths, we've done a 180 at 35 kilometers an hour. And you can do that way quicker if you want to. Take it up to 40 kilometers, 45. You can do exactly the same. It's absolutely mental. Oh, we're a little bit of a job here. Over 70 kilometers an hour, we had 72 kilometers clocking there. It's absolutely bonkers. Honestly, I think you get more thrills in this boat than almost anything else because it just feels so mad doing that speed in a boat this size. But let's not forget that its primary role is as a tender, and it works very well at that if I take it up to a sensible speed. There you go, we can potter along at 30 kilometers an hour. You can drive it just as you would any other little sports boat, very civilized. But then when the mood takes you, the red mist descends, you just become an instant hooligan. Wow. Who even knew you could have that much fun for under £20,000? It is absolutely hilarious. Let me give you a little show around the new MX320. It's fairly simplistic, that's the whole idea. Keep things relatively affordable, very light, and don't fill it full of too many expensive options that just increase the price and the weight. So we've got a simple jockey seat here. You can just about get one and a half people on there if you want to. If you've got a child, you can probably squeeze them in behind, but realistically, it's more comfortable just one up. You've got wells either side for your feet, and you need those because you kind of need to spread your feet to lock yourself in when you're really flinging it through the turns. You've got lifting points on the transom there. On the other side, there are a couple of towing points if you want to tow a wakeboarder or a skier. We've got grab handles along the sides. Now the tubes on this are a little bit wider diameter than they are on the 280, just gives it a little bit more sort of substance, if you like. But in fact, the beam, the moulding of the hull itself is exactly the same. Now we've got a couple of seats here. Again, it's rated for 4 adults plus 1. So you've got 1 there, you've got 2 here, and then if I spin round, there is an extra position here. The plus 1 is obviously for a child. Now, a couple of things to point out here. You can see, again, we've got lifting points on either side here if you want to lift it up on a crane. The extra length largely happens here in this sort of bow area, and it means you've got enough space for a small locker. Very handy. Cushion pops off. We've got a lift and twist locker. So just enough room to store an anchor in a bag, a few life jackets, a couple of bottles of water, that kind of thing. Really handy to have. And then if I spin round this way, you can see we've also got grab handles either side here. So if you're a passenger, it gives you something to hang on to. And trust me, if the driver's a lunatic, you're going to need those. And you've got the filler neck for the fuel tank. I think it's a 28-litre petrol fuel tank. You can see we've got a couple of hinges, and that is to lift this whole thing up to show you the engine, which I will do now. Quick look at the controls before I lift the engine hatch up. We've got that little three-spoke steering wheel, very small diameter, gives it the feeling of a small go-kart. We've got the throttle here, it locks in neutral and then forward and reverse. Now the one thing to point out on all these little Williams jet tenders is that when you're in reverse, because it's buckets over a water jet, you actually steer the opposite direction to normal when you're reversing. So even compared to a normal boat, you have to kind of reprogram your brain to tell you to go the opposite way that you normally would when you're going astern. Got a bilge pump over here, start button here, kill cord. You very definitely need to be wearing that at all times. And a very simple display here that just scrolls through. You've got the speed, you've got fuel consumption, you've got the engine temperature, you've got a compass, and you've got the engine hours, plus a clock, and the RPM. Here you've got the fuel gauge on the right. Again, very simple, very neat, everything you need to know. Now to access the engine, you just flick these little rubber retainers here, get your fingers under the hatch, lift up, and here it is. It is all so compact and so neat. It's also beautifully done. Everything is very, very neat and tidy. You can see we've got the fuel tank up in front there. This is that very compact little Rotax engine. Here is a towing valve. So when you're towing this at speed behind a boat, you just need to close off the intake for that water jet. So literally just twist that to closed. And this is the key I was mentioning. So we're on full power now, but it means you can put it on low power if your children are getting used to it, or a learner, or anybody you don't entirely trust. You just use the key, flick it onto low power, and that just limits the revs and the speed that you're able to go at. While we're here, I thought it's worth pointing out the differences between the new MX320 and the 280. We're on the 280 now, and this effectively replaces the previous MiniJet. It's very similar. I mean, obviously it's a little bit shorter than the 320. The tubes you can see are a little bit narrower in diameter. From midships backwards, it's pretty much identical. You've got that same jockey seat arrangement, exactly the same length. And if we turn around and have a look up this end, you'll see where the main differences are. You just have a much shorter bow, so there's no bow locker in there, and you haven't got the aft-facing seat. So this is only rated for 3+1 rather than 4+1. Now, a couple of things also to point out. There aren't many options you can get on the MX range, but there are a couple of quite important ones. One is there are dry bags that clip in either side here, gives you a bit of extra storage, keeps everything nice and dry if you want to put your phone and so on in there. This one is also fitted with a bathing ladder. You can probably see if I spin the camera around, there is a little folding bathing ladder under there that just enables you to climb in and out of the water that much easier. And then the final one is it has a removable steering wheel. If I clamp the camera between my legs, hopefully you can just pop that off. And that is for two reasons. One, it's a security feature. It means nobody's going to be stealing your boat if they can't actually steer it. It also means that it actually reduces the profile. So if you have a very low garage, for instance, that is actually the highest point on board. And by taking that off, it just means you can fit into a slimmer garage. So let's see how much difference that lower power engine makes. So this only has 60 horsepower. It's essentially the same engine, the same block. It's just a lower state of tune that reduces the amount of power available. And frankly, given how quick that 320 was, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. So let's have a little go. Oh, there's still plenty of pickup. Certainly in terms of performance, it's not quite as manic, but because it's so small and even lighter, it's still very, very quick. And it's just a little bit busier because there's a bit less boat in the water. You're a bit more affected by every little sort of wave and bounce that you get. But to be honest, it feels like it's a really nice balance. It's the right power. It's still a lot of fun. But I really don't think you'd want 90 horsepower in this boat. I think it would just be too much of a handful. It's still quite a busy little boat and a lot of fun. And there's plenty of power for something this size. But I think that's probably a very sensible decision not to put the full 90 horsepower in it. But let's see if I can find a flat enough section of water. We'll try and give it a proper whiz. but because we are sort of, it has chopped up just a little bit, to be honest, so it's not quite as calm as it used to be. Right, let's see what kind of speed we can actually get. This one is in miles an hour rather than kilometers an hour. But we'll give it a good go. That is still surprisingly quick. I got up to 39 miles an hour, certainly in flat water. I think it's going to be good for 40 miles an hour. But that is plenty quick enough for something this size. So there we have it. That is the MX range. We've got this boat, the 280, the 320 we were on before, and hopefully you've got some idea of just how much fun you can have on such a small boat. But let's not forget that these were first and foremost designed as tenders, and actually they're a really capable little boat. I'm surprised how dry I've stayed. Those tubes do help to keep the water out rather than in, and of course because of those little fins it tracks pretty well at speed, and given the size of them it's actually more comfortable than I was expecting. Some of the early Williams jet tenders, I have to say, you did feel like you were a little bit beaten up on them if it was at all rough. And still, because of the fact that they are so small and so light, and because of that water jet system, when you do come out of the water you get this slight sort of jarring motion because as it loses power when the intake comes out of the water. But what is apparent is just what a lot of fun you can have for a relatively affordable amount. I know it's a small boat, but for under £20,000 and what's mainly going to be used as a tender to the mothership, it just means you can have an awful lot of fun when the mood takes you. So good on you, Williams. You've kept all that magic. It's still as much fun as ever, but it's just a better, more rounded boat too.